Welcome out there once again to my program. Always a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to have you out there in the audience. Before I get to my two guests, I want to give you my tip of the week, my legal tip of the week, which is this. There's always been a somewhat of a controversy in regards to oceanfront property. People who own oceanfront property really don't want the public to walk in front of their property. They don't want people bathing in front of their property or fishing in front of their property, but you can enter the land that's between a high water mark and a low water mark. That's for public use. So if you're in that area between a high water mark and a low water mark, and usually you can see where the high water mark is, you might see some seaweed, etc. You can go along that. That's not illegal. And if the homeowner, property owner wants you out of there, they have no legal right to remove you. But what I want to get to is this. Sometimes a homeowner, property owner, next to the ocean, will have what they call registered land. That's registered at the land court. It has all the metes and boundaries of that piece of land. However, living next to the ocean, you hear about it quite often, actually. That land is eroded. The waterfront, you might say, changes. The watermark recedes toward the ocean side. In a recent case, what the court said is this: if any property is accreted to the original registered land, so that, let's say you had a piece of land that was 350 feet, and in the ocean, high water mark, and it's registered land, that's your land. And the case was basically this: if the ocean receded, and now you don't have 350 feet, you've got 450 feet. Are you entitled to that 100 feet of accretion to your land? Especially if you have registered land, which is, once again, very certain in dimensions. The court said, yes. You have now acquired an additional 100 feet of land to your property, so that's a wonderful thing. So I keep that in mind. That's your tip of the week. And to continue on, I want to welcome my two guests that have been on a number of times before, and it's school committee man, Fall River, Joseph Martins, and school committee man, Fall River, Gabe Andrade. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's get on to a subject that I picked up in the newspaper in regards to homeschooling. And basically the headline is this: number of homeschooled students has doubled since 1999. What is the, let's start with the basics. What is homeschooling? What is that in a general way? What does that really mean?
The parents take charge of the child's education. The child does not have to be in a regular school building. The child will simply be in his home, and the parents will take charge of the education. And there are certain things that the parent must check in occasionally with the school authorities, because they have to have some way of knowing that the child is actually learning and accomplishing some of the academic tasks that they require.
So, Joe, is there a, in other words, let's say we start off with third year, the child's in third grade. Parents decide they want to keep them home, start to homeschool them. Where do they get the course of study, the curricula?
You can get that from the public school. The curriculum has to be approved by the superintendent, and the curriculum of the school you have access to. You have access to the books. you have access to just about everything that that student would have if that student
We're
was
in
in the
third grade,
classroom.
actually present at the school site.
Right, right.
So-
And you also have to prove that you're capable of being able to provide the education for the student.
Now,
you know.
okay, so what does that mean? They check the parents' background?
Yeah, they would check, okay, are you a college graduate, or just a high school graduate, or a high school dropout in there? And because it can be not approved, and then that'll end up with a court battle, but you know, that can be done in there, because the student, if the parent is not qualified, cannot help the student, then basically the student is not going to be able to learn properly.
So
in there.
the subjects would be the subjects that are, we'll say we're talking about a third grade student. Of course, there's no physical education, am I right?
Well, there's no physical education, but that's built into homeschooling. You can, okay, you can go to, say, Buttonwood Park.
All right, so in other words, there's a requirement also.
That's a regular class. You're entitled to participate in any sport that you would normally play in.
The school has
If
to
you-
offer.
Right, that's offered. If you want to play football, just because you're homeschooled doesn't mean that you cannot play football.
Okay, and that
You're
means
entitled to do that.
music, like playing in the school orchestra?
Well, I suppose they could in the practices and also in concerts in there. If they cannot afford an instrument is provided for them, just like many of the students that play an instrument. The parents don't buy the instrument. The instrument actually belongs to the school. At the end of the year, they turn the instrument in, so that you can. I've had calls from parents about homeschooling, and I go through the process and telling them what they have to do to get approved. But I also recommend to them that there are 2 schools in Massachusetts that are Massachusetts Department of Education approved, and Greenfield, I believe, is one of them. Greenfield has its own school system, but in addition to that, they have a virtual high school.
Now, does Fall River, all school systems allow homeschooling. Is that correct, Gabe?
I'm not sure if all do. I
Well,
know
does
that
Fall River offer?
Fall River does.
Homeschooling.
Fall River does allow for that,
All
yes.
right. When does it start? Is there a, like, in other words, first grade? Can it start?
I believe it can start from whenever the child is ready to start school, if that's
Most
what
of
the
the time
parent
they
wants.
start at first grade in kindergarten.
And it can go right through high school?
Yes.
You can. My next door neighbor homeschooled her children.
Right through high school?
No. Through, I think about 4th grade.
Now,
And then they go to a private school.
is there a great advantage in the sense that, you have this terrible winter, your weather in the winter. You don't have to pack the kid up, dress him, put him on a bus, or drive him over to the school. Then, of course, the child has to be picked up. So is there a pretty good advantage, a convenience where they're home?
Well, it may be, maybe not. Because first of all, you have to be available. You cannot have a full-time job,
Oh, yeah.
I believe, and do this. Because even though it might take less time to educate the child at home, when you consider that the child is alone, you don't have to spend a lot of time with other kids, it still takes a considerable amount of time, number one. Number two, I wouldn't think that it would be that easy to do that. Even though it is just one child, And sometimes a parent dealing with a child in that particular way is harder than entrusting him to a teacher. Sometimes, you know, sometimes a kid will take liberties at home that he might not take in school with other people. So there may be some advantages, obviously, but I think they're very easily offset by the amount of work that is
From the
involved in
parental
that.
point of view, though, the major advantage is that the parents are not satisfied with the curriculum
Right.
of the public school, and you know, for whatever reason,
Or the way it's being delivered.
or the way it's being delivered, absolutely so. You know, it could be a moral issue.
Or it could be a social issue
Or a
also.
social
you know,
issue as well.
Would it be a religious issue?
Well, that's a moral, yeah, a moral issue.
Okay.
Of, you know, I don't want my child to be instructed in that capacity. I want the reading, writing, and arithmetic type. You know, I don't want them to go into some of the social things that the public schools offer that they disagree with.
Yeah. Now, okay, so the parent, all parents, they get the books and the material from the school. Is that it? And are there lesson plans that go along with it so they can keep up with what goes on in the third grade?
No, not lesson planning. Like this is what you're going to do on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday, but they're supposed to follow the curriculum.
Right. So how do they know they're at the correct pace? Do they have contact with the teacher or teachers?
Well, there is a test that they can give the child to make sure that the child is performing on grade level.
Who gives the test?
The public schools can do that, give the test on there, or you can pay for it on a private basis.
Where's the test
provide.
administered? Is it at home or in the school?
It's the standard nationally accepted.
No, but
test.
where would it be administered? In the home or the school?
Most likely be administered at home with a proctor.
All right, so someone has to go to the house to give the test.
Right.
It's probably, they do have tutors. The public schools hire tutors, for instance, to give lessons to kids who were out of school for a period of time because they may have been sick over that time, or who have a long-term suspension. So it would possibly be one of them who would proctor an exam. Obviously, if the kid did it at home with no supervision at all, you wouldn't know who actually took the test.
Well, that's what I was getting at. You know, Johnny get all A's. Wow, that's really good.
It's the parent.
Never took the test.
Yeah, you're right. That doesn't. You know, there are some safeguards that sort of prevent that from happening, so that the student is there for. You want to homeschool, that's fine, but you have to demonstrate that you have the capability of teaching the student, and that the student is indeed learning in accordance with progression from one grade to another grade.
Based on your experience, if you can speak to the subject, has it been successful? Do you know of any cases in the system, and however how far the student was homeschooled? Has it been successful?
I've only known maybe one or two cases during the time that I worked for the public school system, and I only knew them around the time that they had started. This was at Durfee High School, so I don't know long term what may have happened with them. However, I would guess that kids have successfully completed that and have done well. If you consider that they may have had parents who were really very much involved and competent, they certainly could have mastered the material that they needed. The major issues could be where, for instance, they might need a lab work, but obviously you can't replicate that very easily at home. The other thing that could be a potential problem with a student who is homeschooled is the whole social interaction If the child does not interact very often with other kids, then he may be socially backward, or maybe possibly too aggressive, not having had that opportunity to deal with other children. So those are two
Successful,
possibilities.
Homeschooling, it is economics in that the parents who are well-to-do, and they decide if they want to homeschool their children. And if you're talking about France, you go to France. Okay, and you see Normandy and the graves of all the fallen soldiers, the Eiffel Tower, and all that in there, so that you get that, but that's not an average. I mean, you just can't just, okay, fine, we're going to go do this, Zim.
Well, you have more and more parents, or people in general, that work from their home.
Mm-hmm.
My nephew works for the patent office, and his wife works for the patent office in Washington, D.C. And they're allowed now, they have a lot of experience, etc. They stay home and work from their homes, their house.
Alaska.
So what I'm getting at is that people like them, and others, of course, have a perfect opportunity if they want to homeschool, because they're home anyway.
Mm-hmm. Alaska, except for the major cities of Alaska, they have a regular school system the students can go to. But Alaska is such a huge state. The state provides them with a computer system, and it's all tied in. They get up in the morning, they tune in to first grade or second grade or whatever grade level they're at in there, and it's virtual learning.
So when you say virtual learning, explain that.
And that it's all done by computer. You can talk to the teacher.
All right, so you're actually in the class.
No, you're at home.
No, but I mean, you're in a class.
Oh yeah. You're
virtually.
That's correct.
You're in a class. When a teacher is giving the lesson, you're getting the
correct.
The lesson
correct. Yeah.
as it's being delivered by the teacher.
Yes.
And you can participate.
Yeah.
In other words,
and
if
it's
there's
recorded. The class, the lesson is recorded, so that if you want to go back, tomorrow, and review that lesson, fine. You can review the lesson.
Well, that's a good idea, because a lot of times you don't get it the first time around.
Right.
Physics, mathematics.
Because Alaska is so huge, and your next door neighbor might very well be 10 miles down the road.
Right.
In there, and it's just impossible to transport the
how about
students.
the aspect of maybe I'm not using the correct word, not tutoring, but extra help. Sometimes, it used to be where the student wants to stay after the class is finished for another 15 or 20 minutes. He tells the teacher, I just quite can't get this. Can you give me a little help? The teacher stays for that extra time and explains it again. Is there a mechanism for that also?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I really don't know.
Fall River has that.
Oh, okay.
Where students can access, not at 1 o'clock in the morning,
No.
but they can access a tutor. The RPS students have that capability
From their home,
from their home
via computer,
and
this is a live type thing.
I know. I think it is. It's like a one-on-one.
Yeah.
And they're not sitting in on a class.
No.
Via video, but you have from your home, you have access to a teacher teaching math or English language arts or whatever in there, and you can converse with that teacher, about whatever is troubling.
It's quite common these days, I imagine, because college courses are given via the computer. and you actually get credit. Licensing in the state of Massachusetts, the renewal aspect, certain types of licenses, every 1 or 2 years you have to take a course, and you can either go to a location and sit there, and an instructor will give you the updates in regards to your license, or you can do it from your living room if you have a computer. So it more and more of that's happening.
Yes, it is. You still have to pay for it, though. You have to pay the tuition. You don't get away with that.
No, you don't. But like I was, a technician, Steve, was just mentioning that you get on a computer, and let's say you're studying ancient Roman history. Well, you can go into some websites and it just loads you up with all kind of material and film. So that, in other words, you can't do that readily in a classroom because you're under a certain regimen, a certain instruction for that hour, whatever it is. But at home, you can break away and get all this additional information, which is, very helpful, and probably makes your test, if you're taking a test, a lot more, or getting information a lot easier.
Technology is great as long as technology works. Something happened to the computer and it's, son of a gun.
Well, yeah, then you have to get on a bus and go to school, I guess. So what do you see in education for the future as we're talking about this and things that are any new developments in the school system along these lines?
Well, as a matter of fact, that is the computerization is something that's been talked about. It could be something that will happen more frequently, and that does happen in some places actually. There are potential problems with that, though, and I would say that when they talk about each kid learning on a computer, let's say in the classroom, they're also talking about that in terms of reducing the number of teachers. So that's certainly the advantage to a school system of doing it that way.
Well, let me just say, does that help in regards to class size?
Well, what I have heard or what I have seen is a possibility of having a relatively large class size, or larger than what we're seeing, like maybe 40 to a class, with maybe one person who'll shuttle around between all the students. The major problem with something like that is, I believe, that there's less human contact. Where the teacher, student.
That's when you say less human contact, that's a major concern already.
Yes.
In life generally. I mean, people are talking to their cell phones. They don't talk to each other
That's
anymore.
correct.
They don't write letters. Dear Joe, I met you the other day, nice to talk to you. Maybe we can get together and further this discussion. It seems like, well, and eventually they're not even going to be able to write because cursive is going out the door. Let's get on to that, cursive.
Well, we had that discussion some time ago where there was a presentation by an individual about cursive writing, and it has been reinstated.
Oh, it has.
Back into Fall River. I first noticed this.
Oh, so it's back into Fall River.
Yes.
Oh, good. You know why? Because, how would these kids be able to read the Declaration of Independence or a lot of these documents that are in cursive?
Well, not only that, but they say also the process of writing cursively also trains the mind, the brain in a particular way, and that's something that we've gotten away from, that we've lost.
Well, that's, getting back to this human contact, there actually seems to be less and less of it.
Correct.
People are glued to their TVs or they're glued to their computers. They're not talking much to each other anymore.
You know, and that means the civility.
Socialization, clubs can't get 10 members to show up because they're all busy doing what?
Yeah. There was a clip on America's Funniest Videos where they were in New York City. They were videoing people walking and
Oh, yeah.
texting, and the lady walked right into a telephone pole, smack. You know.
Well, you know, you see a lot of people driving, one hand on a steering wheel
Yeah.
and the other holding the,
Uh-oh.
I mean, it's very, very common.
Well, the worst is the texting, because you need both your hands for the
That's supposed to
with
be
your
illegal.
thumbs. It's,
Of course,
but
I'm
it
sure
happens.
you know,
But there's going to be more discussion on cursive, teaching cursive writing.
but it's back into city.
It's in.
Yeah.
Okay.
To which
and
degree,
We asked to have
I
a
don't know.
report on just how far it's come along in there, because kids
Let me
have
ask
to
you,
be
what
able
was
to
the
sign their name.
What was the idea of not teaching it?
I think
How did this develop like this?
I think it was all the whole testing, you needed more time to prepare the kids for the test. So it was they're cramming all that material that they felt that you needed, and gradually it pushed things out of the curriculum.
Oh, it's just hard to believe.
But I'm
Something so fundamental as that, that's been with us ever since the time of writing,
Mm-hmm.
to you know, not have it anymore, it seems to be strange because I mean, you get huge amounts of documents
right.
that are handwritten. I mean, some of the greatest works were, of course, originally handwritten.
That's
They
right.
had no typewriters or computers.
And we old timers still do that, so they can't even read what we're writing.
Well, that's what we were talking about. How are your grandchildren going to read what you write? Yeah, I mean, you'd have to print.
Right.
And cursive has always been considered an art form, penmanship.
Correct.
So, well, we're getting down to the end of the program. What's on the horizon, the education in Fall River?
The new school is coming along.
Which one is that?
The new Durfee.
Okay.
From what I understand, they're selecting an architect to design the building.
Now, will the old one be knocked down, or?
I
Oh,
put
new-
a portion of it.
Okay.
The auditorium will stay, and the Luke Urban Fieldhouse will stay in there. And
So how does Durfee get money to do that, and Diamond can't get a nickel?
because of the fact that the community, we had a discussion the last time we were here, because of the fact that the communities do not want Diamond to expand any more than it is, and that's a darn shame. And I don't mind telling that to anybody.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a former superintendent of Diamond, but nevertheless, because of the fact that more and more kids want to go to Diamond, that means less kids going to their home schooling, and therefore that leaves less money.
Well, gentlemen, always a pleasure to have you on a program. We'll see you in 3 weeks. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I always do. Very informative about the school department, and of course you have two members of the committee, so if you want to contact them and ask them questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to discuss whatever you have on your mind. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.